He was explicitly warned by his own son to stay away. Yet the second Deion Sanders stepped onto the Cleveland Browns practice field, the entire NFL ecosystem violently imploded. Strutting past the cameras with unyielding swagger, Prime turned a crucial professional training camp into a sprawling high-stakes personal media circus, cornering offensive coordinators and lecturing his rookie quarterback while cameras rolled. Deion blurred the line between legendary Hall of Fame mentorship and destructive helicopter parenting. Outrage instantly ignited across the league as furious fans declared the circus had officially arrived in Berea, while coaches desperately struggled to maintain control over a volatile locker room. Behind closed doors, veterans watched in disbelief as the relentless media frenzy completely hijacked football operations for the ultimate family spectacle. Was this an undeniable act of fatherly guidance, or did Coach Prime just suffocate Shadeur's NFL career before it even truly began? To understand the magnitude of his arrival, you have to understand the hyper-fragile ecosystem of the Cleveland Browns at that exact moment. Cleveland was already walking a razor-thin tightrope, attempting to navigate a high-stakes, multi-million-dollar quarterback room while managing a fan base that has suffered through decades of organizational chaos. The addition of a legendary outspoken father roaming the sidelines was the absolute last dynamic the coaching staff wanted to manage. As Deion paced the boundaries of the field, holding court with photogenic ease, the cameras didn't just record his arrival, they broadcasted a seismic event directly to a hyper-connected sports universe. Every tilt of his head, every wave to the bleachers, and every casual stroll near the offensive huddles was captured in high definition, instantly signaling that the quiet work of training camp was over and the Prime reality show had officially set up shop in Berea. Within seconds of the first footage hitting social media, the internet flared into an absolute inferno of outrage and hot takes. Old-school analysts, sports radio hosts, and die-hard Cleveland fans exploded online, viewing the grand entrance not as supportive fatherhood, but as an aggressive display of ego and main character energy. Twitter and sports message boards were flooded with scathing reactions, with the consensus sentiment hardening almost instantly. The circus has officially come to town. Dedicated Browns fans who pride themselves on a blue-collar, keep-your-head-down football culture expressed immediate disgust at what they perceived as an unneeded, high-profile distraction during the most critical week of installation. To them, the spectacle threatened to turn a crucial NFL preparation period into a chaotic media stunt designed to center one man, regardless of the fallout for the rest of the roster. The optics online were undeniably brutal. Skeptics argued that no other rookie in modern NFL history would be allowed to have their parent parade around an active practice field, let alone a parent with a massive media megaphone and an appetite for confrontation. Commentators began firing off urgent warnings, claiming that Deion's overwhelming presence would alienate Shedeur from the very teammates he was supposed to lead. In a professional locker room where respect is earned through humility, work ethic, and silence, having a Hall of Fame father hovering over the sidelines signaled entitlement. Critics openly questioned how Shedeur could ever establish authority in the huddle when his father was actively dominating the sidelines, treating an official NFL facility like an extension of his own personal compound. Yet, amid the swirling storm of public backlash, Shedeur was forced to put on his helmet and snap into focus under the most suffocating microscope in sports. Every throw he made during individual drills was immediately linked back to the figure standing 30 yards away in designer gear. If he threw a crisp spiral, the cameras panned to Deion nodding. If a pass hit the turf, the broadcast cut to Deion's impassioned reactions. The young quarterback's body language was stiff, carrying the visible tension of a player desperately trying to execute a complex playbook, while knowing his father's presence was actively igniting a national sports media war. The boundary between parent and spectator had vanished entirely, setting the stage for an unprecedented clash between a father's unyielding instinct to control the narrative and the brutal, unforgiving realities of professional football. Before the sweat could even bead on the forehead of new offensive coordinator Todd Monken, the heavy presence of prime time materialized directly in his peripheral vision. Deion Sanders didn't wait for an invitation to the coach's offices. He engineered an unscripted private huddle right on the edge of the active practice field, catching Monken in an intensely high-profile ambush before team drills even commenced. Under the watchful glare of surrounding cameras, Deion closed the physical distance, leaning in with the practiced authority of a man who believes his credentials dwarf any standard NFL protocol. His message was sharp, delivered with the intense cadence of a master salesman and veteran mentor. He wasn't standing there as a concerned father looking for special favors, but as a legendary Hall of Famer who had spent years intimate with Shadeur's mental wiring. Deion made it clear he intended to hand Monken the exact blueprint to unlock his son's competitive engine, dictating precisely how the young signal caller needed to be pushed, managed, and coached to survive the brutal NFL environment. For Monken, a veteran play caller trying to establish total control over a volatile offense, the dynamic was extraordinarily delicate. To outwardly reject Deion's overtures risked initiating a toxic public feud with one of the most powerful and articulate voices in sports media, yet succumbing to the conversation created an immediate, dangerous precedent. Monken was forced into an uncomfortable tightrope walk, nodding along with polite, guarded professionalism while desperately attempting to maintain the boundary between an independent NFL staff and an overbearing family hierarchy. The sheer sight of a rookie's father holding court with the primary offensive play caller on the morning of practice sent an instant, chilling message throughout the coaching staff. In Cleveland, coaching Shedeur Sanders would never be a standard professional assignment, but a joint venture with the omnipresent co-signee. If the meeting with Monken signaled an invasion of the coaching structure, what followed on the sidelines during team drills was an absolute spectacle of micromanagement. The instant Shedeur stepped off the field after a high-pressure 11-on-11 series, Deion was waiting for him right at the hash marks, completely overriding the team's quarterback coaches. As national lenses zoomed in, Prime cornered his son, launching into a relentless, high-energy lecture while the cameras rolled continuously. With sharp, pointing hand gestures and an intense gaze, Deion dissected Shedeur's footwork, field vision, and pocket presence in real time, effectively running his own private coaching clinic on an active professional sideline. Shedeur stood under the oppressive barrage with a rigid posture, helmet pulled down, absorbing the loud feedback while trying to maintain his composure under the piercing gaze of the surrounding media corps. The public optics of the moment were catastrophic for anyone hoping for a clean transition into professional football. Old-school analysts, seasoned NFL scouts, and former players exploded across national broadcasts, universally condemning the sideline confrontation as helicopter parenting on an absurd, unprecedented scale. They pointed out that in the rigid, hyper-masculine culture of the NFL, a rookie quarterback must establish absolute, undisputed sovereignty over the huddle. By physically positioning himself between Shedeur and his team, Deion was subverting his son's authority in front of the very veterans he was trying to command. Critics questioned how offensive linemen could trust a young quarterback to lead them through the fire when his father was actively stepping onto the field to correct his mechanics after every single mistake. To the wider football public, the scene felt less like professional athletic preparation and more like an overbearing youth sports parent refusing to let go of the steering wheel. Analysts drew sharp lines between supportive parental interest and suffocating over-involvement, arguing that Deion's ego was actively undermining Shedeur's development. In trying to control every detail of his son's transition to the league, Prime was reinforcing the damaging narrative that Shedeur was merely an extension of the Sanders brand, rather than an independent NFL professional capable of standing on his own 2 feet. The sideline lectures didn't project strength or elite preparation, they projected an unsettling reality where a Hall of Fame father simply could not trust the NFL process, leaving the young quarterback trapped in a suffocating spotlight where every step was dictated from above. As the media firestorm metastasized across morning airwaves, sports talk networks found themselves locked in a fierce, polarized debate over the exact nature of Deion Sanders' sideline intervention. On one side stood the traditionalists, who aggressively lumped Coach Prime into the infamous category of overbearing sports fathers, like LeVar Ball or Archie Manning. Critics argued that just as LeVar's boisterous, self-aggrandizing media tour created a target on Lonzo Ball's back, Deion was turning his son's NFL journey into a volatile family vanity project. Analogies were drawn to Archie Manning's calculated orchestration of Eli Manning's 2004 draft destination, with pundits claiming that Deion was taking nepotistic leverage to an entirely new, suffocating level. From this perspective, Prime was severely suffocating Shedeur's development, robbing the young quarterback of the organic adversity, trial-by-fire mistakes, and peer-to-peer accountability required to survive the uncompromising ecosystem of professional football. Yet inside Deion's camp, the narrative was viewed through an entirely different, fiercely protective lens. To Prime and his defenders, comparing a first-ballot Hall of Famer to loud-mouthed celebrity parents was an absolute insult to his unmatched football intellect. Deion wasn't just a proud father making noise from the bleachers. He was one of the greatest defensive minds in gridiron history, a two-time Super Bowl champion who understood the speed, psychological warfare, and brutal realities of pro football better than almost anyone standing on that Cleveland practice field. Coach Prime's defense was built on a simple premise. He had painstakingly built Shedeur's mechanics, footwork, and mental fortitude from high school through college, winning at every single stop along the way. In his mind, stepping in during a grueling, multi-way Cleveland quarterback battle wasn't helicopter parenting. It was an elite, high-level intervention designed to protect his son from an organization historically notorious for mishandling young talent. Behind the closed doors of the Browns facility, however, the internal reaction was far more nuanced than the hyperventilating media reports suggested. While commentators envisioned a locker room on the verge of mutiny, veteran players and general manager Andrew Berry operated with a far cooler, more pragmatic assessment of the situation. Inside the locker room, established leaders understood that the NFL is fundamentally a business of production. If a rookie quarterback can deliver crisp passes, read complex coverages, and win football games, no one on the defensive line or in the receiving corps gives a damn whose father is standing on the sideline. Veterans who had seen every conceivable distraction over their careers viewed Prime's presence with a mix of mild amusement and total indifference, recognizing that high-profile personalities are simply part of the modern media landscape. Andrew Berry and the executive suite approached the spectacle with calculated restraint, recognizing the immense public relation tightrope they were forced to walk. While the media painted the picture of an embarrassed franchise surrendering control, Berry knew that alienating a talent like Shedeur or waging a petty public feud with a legendary figure like Deion would create a far more destructive narrative. The front office focused strictly on the on-field tape, quietly monitoring whether Deion's high-energy coaching points were actually translating to sharper execution during team periods, while the public media engine demanded outrage and disciplinary action against the circus. The team's actual decision-makers evaluated the scenario through cold, unemotional data, balancing the undeniable media noise against the raw upside of their newly drafted quarterback. For Todd Monken, taking the reins of the Cleveland offense was supposed to be a masterclass in tactical play calling, but he suddenly found himself trapped directly in the crosshairs of an unprecedented management nightmare. Monken wasn't just tasked with installing a complex, high-octane passing scheme. He was forced to balance a volatile, deeply complicated dynamic inside his own quarterback room. On one end stood a massive, fully guaranteed $230 million veteran contract, carrying immense organizational pressure and expectation. On the other stood Shedeur Sanders, a high-profile rookie possessing immense upside, magnetic star power, and a hyper-engaged fanbase. Layered directly on top of that already delicate balancing act was Deion Sanders himself, a Hall of Fame force who refused to act like a passive observer, constantly looming over practice periods and inserting his towering voice into the offensive installation process. This unprecedented dynamic thrust Monken into an impossibly awkward position where every tactical decision was micro-analyzed through a drama-filled lens. If Monken gave Shedeur extra reps with the first team offense during practice, the media immediately claimed he was caving to Coach Prime's aggressive sideline demands. If he kept Shedeur strictly with the second unit to protect the veteran hierarchy, critics accused him of suppressing the young quarterback's natural growth to protect the front office's heavy financial investments. Monken found himself spending as much time managing delicate egos and deflecting invasive media inquiries as he did studying game film, navigating an explosive environment where one wrong step could completely fracture his offensive unit before the regular season even kicked off. As Deion's daily presence on the sidelines continued to dominate national headlines, local Cleveland media completely abandoned standard football coverage in favor of the emerging circus. Beat writers, television crews, and radio hosts shifted their primary focus away from offensive line depth charts, defensive schemes, and special teams battles, zeroing in almost exclusively on the Sanders family reality show. Daily press conferences transformed into chaotic interrogation sessions where head coaches, veteran players, and front office personnel were peppered with endless questions about Deion's comments, his private meetings with staff, and his overall impact on team chemistry. The actual sport of football became mere background noise to the ongoing primetime spectacle unfolded in Berea. This relentless media frenzy created an immediate, suffocating echo chamber that threatened to engulf the entire organization. Every subtle interaction on the practice field, a fleeting gesture, a shared look, or a brief conversation between Shedeur and his coaches was instantly dissected across local sports talk radio and amplified globally on social media. For a franchise desperately trying to build a disciplined, blue-collar, winning culture, the overwhelming spotlight turned every single training camp drill into a high-stakes, dramatic episode. The team's football identity was being systematically eclipsed by a circus narrative, forcing players and coaches alike to spend their energy tuning out external noise rather than honing their execution on the field. Lost in the center of this swirling media hurricane was the direct physical effect on Shedeur Sanders himself as he attempted to navigate his professional development. On one hand, having a legendary Hall of Fame father offering real-time instruction provided an elite level of technical insight that no ordinary rookie could ever dream of accessing. Deion's sharp eyes caught tiny mechanical flaws, delayed processing reads, and footwork inconsistencies instantly, offering elite-level corrections right off the whistle. Yet the incredible weight of those high-profile sideline lectures added a nearly unbearable burden of expectation onto the young quarterback's shoulders, ensuring that every single mistake was broadcast, evaluated, and debated on a national stage. Ultimately, the relentless intrusion left analysts and teammates questioning whether Prime's intense hovering was truly sharpening Shedeur's focus or quietly crushing him under an impossible standard. While the continuous guidance was meant to accelerate his growth in a tough quarterback room, it simultaneously stripped away the vital breathing room a young passer needs to process mistakes naturally. Shedeur was forced to execute under a double layer of extreme pressure: the immense multi-million-dollar demands of playing quarterback in the NFL, alongside the overwhelming obligation to prove he wasn't just a silver spoon product of his father's suffocating omnipresent shadow. As the initial dust settled over the Berea practice complex and Coach Prime's high-profile Week 1 visit finally reached its dramatic conclusion, the immediate media storm began to clear, revealing a fundamentally altered landscape for the Cleveland Browns. Deion Sanders eventually stepped back into his own sprawling orbit, leaving the facility grounds behind, but the precedent he set was permanently etched into the white lines of the practice field. His sudden departure didn't restore the quiet, blue-collar monotony of a typical NFL training camp. Instead, it left behind an invisible, permanent footprint. The boundary between a professional franchise's strict operational autonomy and the overwhelming influence of the Sanders family brand had been decisively breached, ensuring that every future drill, roster move, and quarterback battle would forever be viewed through the lens of Prime's dramatic arrival. The long-term consequences of this unprecedented intrusion immediately began to loom large over the Browns' upcoming season. If Shedeur fails to win the starting job outright or finds himself relegated to the bench behind an expensive veteran, the league now knows exactly how Coach Prime operates. Will Deion simply remain a quiet, distant observer from his own collegiate sidelines, or will he shadow the franchise all autumn long, utilizing his massive media platform to lobby for his son the moment the offense stumbles? The constant threat of his return hangs like a heavy cloud over the coaching staff, transforming every offensive struggle or coaching decision into a potential public relations powder keg that could detonate across national sports airwaves at any second. In the final analysis, the ultimate weight of this entire media spectacle falls squarely onto the shoulders of Shedeur Sanders himself. Trapped beneath the largest, most suffocating shadow in modern sports history, the young quarterback faces an extraordinary career trial. He must somehow find a way to silence the intense noise, establish undisputed authority in a professional locker room, and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is his own man on the gridiron. While his father's legendary career and magnetic gravity brought him to the threshold of the NFL spotlight, no amount of parental protection can throw a touchdown pass on 3rd and long under the blinding lights of a packed stadium. Shedeur's professional survival now hinges on a simple, brutal reality. He must step out from under his father's suffocating cape and write his own legacy, or risk being forever remembered as a mere supporting character in the Coach Prime show.